I'm gonna follow your lead. 59.
It's okay. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Last Shabbat of the year. Oh my goodness. Our first three prayers, melodies, will be found on pages 2 and 3. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Yedi nefesh of harachaman mishoch avdecha eritzonecha yarutz avdecha kimolayal yishtachavel muladarecha Erev lo yedidutecha minofet suf vechotam. Dodi li vadi lo haroe bashoshanim dodi li mizot ola min hamidbar mizot ola min hamidbar. Dodili vanilo haroe bashoshanim dodili mikuteret mor livona dodili vanilo haroe bashoshanim dodili hine matov umanayim sheberachim gam yachad hine matov Umanayim sheberachim gam yachad. How good it is, how sweet it is, to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is, to be together on this day. Hine matov Umanayim sheberachim gam yachad. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים שבת אחים גם יחד.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. What a blessing it is that we get to be together. And of course, we welcome everyone who is joining us on the live stream. I'm going to ask everyone, if you know the person beside you, wish a Shabbat Shalom. And if you don't, take a moment to introduce yourself first. Shabbat Shalom, Marshall. If you'll join me in taking that very needed cleansing breath in with the purity of Shabbat and out with release. Let's do one more. I bet we can all feel it in the air. As Cantor Sibo just said, it is our last Shabbat of 5785. We have a few more days to just be in the environment of this year and take a reflection of what the last year has done or perhaps hasn't done for us. And the air feels heavy globally. Our Jewish calendar is not an accident. It does follow the way of the universe, the wave of the universe. If you're a mystic Jew like I am sometimes, you believe that our calendar isn't just dates. It has the pulse of the world. And it feels heavy. And the beautiful thing is that in just a few days, we're going to have the blessing of gathering together virtually and have Rosh Hashanah. We're going to start with a huge celebration. It's an icebreaker almost, as we really open our heart to the 10 days of awe and then come together for Yom Kippur, our Shabbat of Shabbatot, our grand Shabbat, which is somber in nature, but is actually considered a joyous holiday because Yom Kippur promises a better tomorrow. And what greater way to walk into Yom Kippur than to being together and to thinking about what tomorrow can bring. And tomorrow always brings something better because we can bring something better. And so on this Shabbat, let us bring that light into our space, but more importantly, into our soul. And for a candle lighting, I would love to invite Chris and David, who tomorrow, on a very important Shabbat, will celebrate 44 years of marriage. Please join us on page 10.
Source of blessing, eternal our God, you fill the universe with majestic might, teaching us holiness through sacred obligations, giving us the mitzvah of bringing light on Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel We join on our handout with the singing of Lechu Neranena. Lechu Neranena, Nariya Ladonai, Litzur Yishenu. Lechu neranena, yai lai 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 lai, la Adonai, yai la 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 la. Naria, yai la 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 la. Litzur yishenu, yai la 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 la. Let us sing out to God, the maker of all, sure and strong. Let all of creation from mountain to sea hear our song. Lehu neranena, yai la 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 la, Ladonai, yai la 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 la. Naria, yai la 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 la. Litzur yishenu, yai la 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 la. For all of the wonders and all of God's light, we rejoice. So now let us listen with all of our hearts to hear God's voice. Lichu niranena, yai lai 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 lai, Ladonai, yai lai 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 lai, Naria, yai lai 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 lai, Litzur yishenu, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai.
We continue on page 15 with Or Zarua.
Or Zarua la tzadik u'yishle lev simcha. Or Zarua la tzadik u'yishle lev simcha. Or Zarua la tzadik u'yishle lev simcha. U'yishle lev simcha. Or Zarua la tzadik u'yishle lev simcha. U'yishle lev simcha. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la la.
On page 22, we're going to continue with Lecha Dodi, our most famous poem. And on this Shabbat, we're going to bring the melody of Ethiopia, reminding us of the Jews that are all over the globe and how Judaism has its own melodies wherever she goes.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nikabela.
Shamov וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nikabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, Ki mikor habracha, Merosh mikadam nisucha, Sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nikabela.
I invite you to please rise and face the entrance as we welcome the Shabbat bride.
Boi v'shalom ateret ba'ala, גם בשמחה ובצחולה, תוך אמוני הסגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
We remain standing for the Baruch, our call to worship. Please join us on page 26.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamivorach, Baruch Adonai hamivorach le'olam va'ed, le'olam va'ed. Yadadai, dadadai, yadadai, yadadai,
We continue with our Shema. Please remain standing in this moment on page 31. 2.
Actually, 31. Open up our eyes, teach us how to live, fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one. Open up our eyes, teach us how to live, fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one. We will know that you are one. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kivod Malachuto Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kivod Malachuto Le'olam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
You may now be seated, and in just a moment, we're going to continue with the Ve'ahavta on page 34. But I sometimes get the question, why do we sometimes stand during the Shema? Why do we sometimes sit during the Shema? With the Shema because it is really our holiest blessing. You customarily do what you were just doing before. So because we were just standing for the Baruch Hu before, we remain standing for the Shema. If we do a prayer before that where we were seated, then we remained seated. This isn't just mental and physical acrobatics, but rather a spiritual reminder that because we are echad as a people and echad, one with God, it follows us wherever we go, whether we are sitting or whether we are standing. We always have each other, and we always have God accompanying us side by side. So now let us continue talking about God's great love for us and our love to God on page 34.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידך וחיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
We read together at the top of 41. Eternal, watch over my small domain of light and shadow, those few people who share my love and all others upon this earth that sometimes shakes with thunder and reverberates with lightning. Help us to live with fear and conquer rage. Heal the hate that makes us kill and covers the ground with this Red Sea that only you can part. So may we go through the wilderness to your realm of peace, where all men and women are one, and sing your blessed name. Who is like you, Adonai? Who is like you, Adonai? Ya la la la, ya la 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 la. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh, nora tehilot osei felech, nora tehilot osei felech. Ya la la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya 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 la 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 la. Who is like you, Adonai? Who is like you, Adonai?
Adonai. Who is like you? Adonai.
Little confusion here. I brought the wrong prayer book and the wrong cue sheet.
Other than that, you are perfect.
Otherwise, things are great. We're going to continue. Oh, I wanted to say Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
That I'm not confused about. We're going to continue now on page 44. On page 44, the bottom of the page. We lie down in darkness. This day with its burdens passes away. Raise us up to the light of a new day. Change us with the season. Give us rest and renewal. Make us eager for the dawn. Continuing with the Vishamru on page 46.
Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam barit olam Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam barit olam Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael, b'nei Yisrael, oti leolam vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam berit olam ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et ha-shamayim ve'et haaretz vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam berit olam Uvayom ha-shvi'i Shabbat vayinafash Shabbat vayinafash Shabbat vayinafash Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam berit olam.
We turn now to page 48, and as you're able, I invite you to rise for the Amidah.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi agid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol, HaGibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'koneh HaKol, V'zocher Chasevot V'yimachot, Umevi Geula Livnei Vanechem, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה, אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחייך כל אתה, רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיה הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישוע, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל, אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יחללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
You may be seated as we turn now to page 64.
זוכרנו אדוני אלוהינו בו לטובה, אמן, ופוקדנו בו לברכה, והושיענו בו לחיים, amen.
Turning now to page 66, let us read these paragraphs responsively. God who is ours, God of all generations, to you we are grateful forever. We thank you and tell the tale of your praise, your power in our lives, your caring for our souls, the constant miracle of your kindness.
Morning, noon, and night, we call you goodness, for your compassion never ends. We call you mercy, for your love has no limit. We call you hope, now and for all time.
We turn now to page 70. Sometimes we think of peace as a kind of absence, an absence of strife, an absence of turmoil, an absence of war. I want to read you a brief description, a brief understanding of peace by the great philosopher Baruch Spinoza from one of his great books. Here is what Spinoza says. Sometimes we think of peace as the absence of strife, as the absence of war. But peace is different. Peace, Spinoza writes, is not an absence of war. It is a virtue, a state of mind, a disposition for benevolence and for justice. Let us pause for moments of silent prayer.
יהיו לרצון אמרתי והגיון ליבי לפניך אדוני צורי May this be a year of love and kindness, May strangers come to be friends. May truth and compassion always guide us. Amen. May this be a year of hope and healing for all of those in need. May all of our deeds be a blessing. Amen. A new year, a good year, a chance to start all over. A new year, a sweet year, a chance to bring us closer. May this be a year of selfless giving. May this be a year of peace. And may we forgive and be forgiven. Amen. A new year, a good year, a chance to start all over. A new year, a sweet year, a chance to bring us closer, closer to the ones we love. A world that we can be proud of, long as there are stars above. There comes a new year. Amen.
We pause at this point in our service, as we always do during the service, to think about those members of our families, circle of friends who are ailing at this point, of body, of mind, or of spirit. I'm going to read the list that I have, and then I'm going to give you an opportunity to mention out loud those people about whom you are thinking as we join together to wish each and every one of them a refuah shalema, a return to full health. On this occasion, we remember Leonard Bernstein, Joan Eigner, Karen Glosserman, Bernard Gordon, Rachel Gross, Tom Hausman, Heather Landis, Jane Mayers, Nancy Polk, Mel Prusak, Jared Rube, Shelley Schloss, Sandy Seidel, Michael Shanes, Sheila Singer, Sarah Beth Sokolowski, Will Sukenik, and Stephen Young. As my hand passes over your section of the congregation, if you wish, mention the names of those about whom you are thinking on this occasion. Let's join together now in the singing of the Mishaberach.
Mishaberach avotenu mikor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach imotenu mikor habracha leavotenu. bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. And as we think of those in need of healing, we think of the prayer Achenu. The words can be found on your handout. Today marks 714 days that our brothers and sisters are still held hostages in Gaza, and we sing the prayer Achenu together at this time. Achenu kol Beit Yisrael, Achenu kol Beit Yisrael, Hanetunim b'tzara u'v'shivya, ha'omdin ben bayom u'ven bayabasha, hamakom yirachem aleichem ve'yotzihem b'tzara lirvacha, u'me'afala le'ora u'me'shebut le'gula, hashta ba'gala u'bizman garif.
We often, at this point in our service, after thinking about those who are ailing, we think about the joys and the blessings of our lives, the shehechianu moments of our lives. And I have a nice note from Blaise Eitman, who writes, and I quote, "Great news that I got my hair cut, and my hair is shorter, and embarrassing and exciting news." Those of you who would like to say out loud something that has been wonderful for you this week, something to celebrate? Let's pause for a moment and think silently about the blessings with which we have been endowed. A moment of silence.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, שהחיינו וקימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה.
At this point, I want to introduce our speaker for this evening, Richard Block, who, along with his wife Stacy, is a longtime member of Legacy Tifereth Israel and now Congregation Mishkan Or. Richard is also the son-in-law of Rob and Joanne Balanso and the uncle of Allie and Amanda, and we're just so glad to father-in-law. Okay. Father-in-law, right. Richard is an executive on the team at Life Act. Life Act's mission is to prevent suicide by education, to help us all to recognize the warning signs of suicide. This month is National Suicide Prevention Month, so it is an appropriate moment for us to hear from Richard. Now, of course, we recognize that this is a sensitive topic, but we also feel that it's important to bring sensitive and important topics to our congregational family in the regular venues of our congregational life. In his talk, Richard will interweave the impact of his own mother's death, the impact that it has had on his life, and how it eventually led him to join Life Act. Richard.
They're my kids, by the way. It was a Monday night in October 1984. I was walking across the campus of the University of Wisconsin-Madison, heading to my fraternity house for our weekly meeting. I remember feeling particularly excited that week for the Halloween festivities that were being planned for later that week. As I approached the fraternity house, I saw my girlfriend Stacy and two of my friends standing outside the door of the fraternity. At that moment, I knew that I wouldn't be celebrating Halloween in Madison. I also knew that I wouldn't be celebrating Halloween at all. When I arrived at the front door, Stacy came forward and confirmed my greatest fear, a fear that I had been anticipating with dread for years. Stacy told me that my mother had died by suicide earlier that day. This was unfortunately the tragic conclusion of a story that had been playing out for years. My mother had struggled for a number of years with depression and suicidal thoughts. Although she hid it well from those around her, carrying on about her life with a job while raising a family of 3 children, her depression was a constant throughout her life. When I started college, I even attended some of her psychiatry appointments with her at her request. Looking back at that period now, I realize that it probably wasn't the healthiest decision for me to attend those appointments. I've often wondered why my mother asked me to attend them with her. It was no secret in my family that I was my mother's favorite child, and I think that she saw me as her closest ally in her family, and perhaps as the one person who might be able to understand all of her complexities. You see, you have to remember that everything was different back then when it came to mental health. This was before medications that are totally common today had been approved by the FDA. Medications like Zoloft, which was introduced to the market in 1992, and Lexapro, which was approved in 2002. You may be familiar with these kind of medications, which are now taken by millions of Americans and which are generally widely available in our country, alongside the many other treatment and therapy options that are available. The days after my mother's death were a whirlwind for me and my entire family. I remember spending the next day going from office to office to office to tell my professors that my mother had died and that I needed to go home to Cleveland for the funeral. I told them I didn't know when I'd be back, and I didn't know how or whether I'd be able to finish the rest of the semester. One particular professor told me that I would need to obtain a note to prove that my mother's death had really happened. I remember standing there in disbelief, my heart pounding in my chest and a lump in my throat, wondering why someone would ever require this. Did he really think I was making the story up just to get off taking an exam or two? It all felt so surreal. With the help of Stacy and my friends, I was able to get back to Cleveland for the funeral. Because suicide still had such a stigma in those days, a stigma that has lessened over time, but that certainly remains to this day, we had a private service with only close family and friends in attendance. The day of the funeral was when it really began to sink in for me. My life was never going to be the same. To this day, I can still remember who showed up for our family on that dark day and who stayed away, who embraced me with love, care, and support, and who never acknowledged the death of my mother. When asked by someone at the funeral how I was doing, I remember asking them to imagine the worst day of your life and to multiply that by 1,000. That still wouldn't be even close to the pain I was feeling. At the funeral, the rabbi that gave the eulogy for my mother spoke of the unique tragedy of losing a loved one to suicide. He spoke of the, quote, sadness of a different quality prompted by the desperation and deep sense of aloneness that took Phyllis's life, unquote. The rabbi also shared that it was his hope that we would remember the happy memories of the devoted wife, mother, and friend that my mother had been, and that we would accept the choice that she had made despite the sadness that it caused us. The funeral was also the first moment that I noticed people looking at me with pity, not knowing what to say or do in such a complicated situation. To say that my father, sisters, and I were a complete wreck would be an understatement. We simply had no idea how to move forward with our lives. On some level, I knew that my relationships with my father and sisters would never be the same. Before my mother's death, my parents' relationship had been fraught, and my father had become involved with another woman. I had already felt him pulling away from our family and putting his time and effort into that relationship. Years later, I would observe to my sisters that I felt I had lost both parents on the day that our mother died. As the weeks following her death turned into months, I struggled as I tried to process her death. As the youngest child and the only boy, I had a special bond with my mother, and her death hit me hard. Naturally, as anyone who's been in a similar situation has likely wondered, I asked myself if I could have done more to help her. And even more grim, if I had somehow been responsible for her death. This was obviously a very heavy burden for a 21-year-old. Fortunately, Stacy, her family, and her friends rallied around us to get us through those tragic early days. I will never be able to thank Stacy enough for everything she did for me and for my family. Additionally, Stacy's father and mother jumped in to help us, taking charge of all the legal matters and providing care and support to my entire family. I don't know what we would have done without their emotional and logistical support. Somehow, I made it back to Madison that semester. I was still in a state of shock, trying to pretend to the outside world that everything was okay, when in reality, everything was very much not okay. Nobody can go through an experience like that without something coming out sideways. In the 45 years that I've been with Stacy, we had our first and only major blowout argument during that spring semester. As we sat one afternoon in her kitchen, Stacy told me that I needed to get my shit together, stop being so stoic, and stop pretending like nothing had happened. Otherwise, she would leave me. It was certainly a harsh moment and the toughest conversation that I've ever had with Stacy. It may have possibly been the hardest conversation that I've ever had in my life, but it was also a turning point. A few months later, I finished my last semester of college. On graduation day, as I looked into the crowd of cheering faces, overjoyed students, and proud parents, I remember feeling so sad that my mother wasn't there to see me graduate. While all of my friends were planning European adventures before they embarked on their next steps, I made a different plan. I decided to go on an outward bound trip to Colorado. As part of this wilderness program, participants in Outward Bound go hiking and mountain climbing, and they do a 3-day solo excursion in the woods. After the events of the previous year, I felt that this would be the perfect experience for me. Unfortunately, I could have not been less prepared for my trip, both on an emotional and physical level. The first day, I realized that I hadn't broken my boots properly, and it's already starting to develop massive blisters on my feet. That evening, with my feet aching and throbbing, I sat around the campfire while everyone shared personal stories. When it was my turn, I took a deep breath and let everything out that I had been holding back. It was the first time that I had spoken openly in a public setting about everything, and it felt like a literal weight had been lifted off my shoulders. As I finished my story, the rest of the group sat there stunned, with only the sounds of the crackling firewood breaking the silence. With nobody in the group knowing what to do or say in response, I was reminded once again of the stigma of suicide and of how uncomfortable people were in the face of such a seemingly taboo topic. Despite what felt at the time like a somewhat unsupportive response to my grief, in seeing the group's genuine discomfort and overall numbness, I also felt validated in realizing the depth of the trauma that I had experienced. In all honesty, those blank stares and dropped jaws were all that I needed. Some little hike or rock climbing adventure wasn't going to be more therapeutic for me than that. So, on the second day of what should have been a 3-week-long trip, I packed my bags and headed back to Cleveland to start putting my life back together. I should add, to this day, whenever I go hiking, I make sure to wear shoes that are broken in and wear the right socks. Lesson learned. Before my mother died, I had planned to move to Chicago, but after everything that had happened, I knew that I needed to go back to Cleveland to be with my family. Life began to settle down for me in Cleveland. I started a new job, and Stacy and I became engaged. Planning the wedding without my mother was profoundly sad. My mother had known Stacy since she was 15 and had loved her like her own daughter. I knew that my mother would have been so proud of us on that day. When our first daughter was born, the joy of welcoming new life into the world was an immediate and acute reminder of my mother's absence. I knew that she would have loved our beautiful baby like she was her own. 3 years later, we welcomed our second beautiful daughter to our family. Her delivery was a very difficult and terrifying experience. At the time, I remember wishing that I had my mother there with us to lean on in such a moment of need. As time went on, when pressed, I would often explain to people that my mother had died from various vague health complications. I wasn't prepared to say that she had died from suicide. Even years after her death, I still notice her former acquaintances staring at me when I enter a restaurant or store, not knowing how to acknowledge my presence and the terrible little secret that we both shared. It was a constant reminder that my mother's suicide was going to follow me for the rest of my life. By that point, my father and his new wife were spending most of their time in Florida. My sisters had moved away from Cleveland too. It was clear to me that none of them could deal with the constant reminders that Cleveland brought about the legacy of my mother's death. With 2 kids, life became busier. I thought of my mother with every birthday that the girls celebrated and in every dance performance, choir concert, and play in which they took part. All of the kinds of activities and events that a grandmother would love. The 2 hardest days for me of those years were when the girls had their bat mitzvahs. There was an empty seat in this temple where my mother should have been sitting. Her absence felt especially painful on those days, which held such significance for our family and community. As the girls grew older, I knew that it was only a matter of time before I'd have to tell them about my mother's death. They were starting to ask questions about her and were genuinely curious about the grandmother that they had never known. Eventually, realizing that it would be better for them to hear about the circumstances of her death from me rather than from someone else, Stacy and I decided it was time to tell the girls. Understandably, it was a hard conversation. The news came as such a surprise to the girls, and I had the impression that they were sad both for the grandmother that they had never known and for the loss that I had experienced. I will always remember how sensitive and caring the girls were while we discussed what happened. I know that my mother would have been so proud of these talented, smart, kind, and beautiful girls. It was yet another reminder about the terrible toll a suicide takes on the people who remain, the ripple effect that can carry for generations in a family and community, including even for those who never had the chance to know the person. It was around the same time that I decided to seek help by speaking with a psychologist. My father had recently died, and even though the two of us had mended our relationship in his final years, I could feel that I wasn't myself. My therapist helped me to process so many different aspects of my grief, and I continue to be grateful for the care, support, and guidance she provided me during that time. Looking back now, I only wish that I had started therapy years earlier. In recent years, I've also found comfort in an informal version of therapy. As my friends have started to lose their parents, I've noticed that so many of them have commented on how unbelievable it is to them that I lost my mother at such a young age. It has been quite moving to me that in their moment of sorrow, they're acknowledging the tragedy that I experienced. This small gesture has been so comforting for me, especially after the many years of people not knowing how to talk with me about my mother's death. Over the last few years, as I considered the next chapter of my professional career, I realized I was ready to transition to the nonprofit sector. After years of holding jobs that were primarily focused on providing a stable foundation for my family, I felt ready for something that held more meaning. As I reflected on what mattered most to me in my life, I kept returning to the impact that my mother's death had had on me. As I began exploring, I came across an organization that provided suicide prevention training programs for young people. Founded in 1992, Life Act teaches middle and high schoolers to recognize the warning signs of suicide and to seek professional help for themselves and others. The more I read about Life Act, the more I realized that it was exactly the kind of organization that I knew I wanted to support. In fact, on the 40th anniversary of my mother's death, I visited her grave and told her about my plan to get a job with Life Act in order to honor her legacy. A few months later, I was fortunate enough to start as Life Act's advancement director. In my role, I helped to fundraise and develop community partnerships for the organization with the goal of furthering the organization's mission of supporting youth mental health. Since starting at Life Act, I've had the opportunity to share my story about my mother's death and how it changed my life. For the first time, I've openly shared my experience with friends, colleagues, and professional contacts. I've also committed to reaching out to members of my community when I found out they have lost someone to suicide. Sharing my story with them has been a healing experience, and I also have the impression that has brought comfort to them in their time of need. The more that I've shared my story, the more that people in my life have reached out to me to graciously share their own stories about how suicide, depression, and other forms of mental health challenges have affected their families. I've been so grateful to everyone who's responded so positively to the mission of our organization and to everyone who's been so supportive of my career change. Without a doubt, it has been the first time in my life in which I've actually felt as though the work that I'm doing is not just a job, but rather a calling. Ultimately, if I can help even one family not have to go through an experience similar to mine, then I can say with certainty that this work will be the most important contribution that I could ever make in my career. Going forward, I commit to continuing to share my story. Mental health no longer needs to be something that is discussed in hushed tones, whispered in the corner of a room. Removing the stigma associated with mental health challenges can literally save lives. To anyone processing the loss of a loved one from suicide, I want you to know that even though you might not understand why your loved one made the decision that they did, you will eventually learn how to move forward, one step at a time. Finally, I'm asking you to do something to honor my mother's life, or perhaps someone in your own life who has died by suicide. If you have a friend, family member, or coworker experiencing a mental health crisis, I urge you to do the following. First, ask them directly if they're thinking about harming themselves or if they're experiencing suicidal ideation. Please know that asking this won't plant the seed of an idea some might worry. Asking a person directly about self-harm can be the opening of a life-saving conversation. Second, encourage and persuade them to get help. And third, refer them to appropriate mental health resources. Life Act has a number of resources available on our website, as does the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. And the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline 988 is available 24 hours a day. Most importantly, please don't leave that person alone. Let them know that you are there for them and that they matter to you. Hope and support are the most precious gifts that you could offer them. Based on my experience, I can say without a doubt that the ramifications of a suicide can reverberate in a family and community for generations. Let's all do our best to avoid that. One life at a time, together. Let's save lives. Thank you for listening.
Thanks so much, Richard, for that very powerful and moving presentation. We're going to continue now in our prayer books on page 78, and as you're able, I invite you to rise for the Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח, לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה. כלכנו ככם, וגר עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. And now as we turn to the Kaddish prayer, I want to read the list of the names that I have who have recently passed away or whose yard sites are being observed at this time. And then I'm going to pass my arm around your section of the congregation so that you can mention people about whom you are thinking. We remember those who have been recently deceased: Aaron Shellam, those who have been laid to rest this past week: Hermine Eisen, Helene Edith Franklin, Karen Gutner, Barry Allen Levitt, and Charlotte Price. And we also think about those who have been laid to rest during the past 30 days: Janice Klein, Alan D. Kleinman, Leslie Carnell Harf, Jonathan Arnstein, Joyce Anthony Brown, Mervyn S. Gerson, Adrian Linda Greenwald, Ralph Lloyd Pinkert. And as you know, we are now asking those who would like the names to be read at a service to call them in. The complete list is in your Shabbat handout. And on this occasion, we want to remember Dr. Jack J. Green, Mary Green, Bernard Richard Hollander, David Immerman, Jonathan Johnny Joseph, Hortense Cab, Gertrude Ruth Levin, Maxine Goodman Levin, Edith Marshall, Abigail Glosserman Michelson, Julius S. Raven, Donald Schultz, Pearl Stein, Raymond F. Young, and Charles Zucker. As my hand passes over your section of the congregation, please say out loud or in the privacy of your own hearts those about whom you are thinking, whose yard sites you are observing at this time. And now I'd like to invite those who are observing the period of Shiva, the first 7 days after the death of a loved one, to please rise. Those who are observing the Shloshim, the first 30 days after the death of a loved one, to please rise. And those who are observing the yard site, the anniversary of the death of a loved one, to please rise. And now, as a caring congregation, let us all rise, turning now to page 86, and let us recite the Kaddish together. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divrach irutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon ev yomechon u'v'chayei l'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kari v'yamru amen. Yehi Shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olam me'almaya, Yit barach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudashah parichu, le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, da'amiran bi'alma v'yimru amen. Yehi shalom araba min shemaya v'chayim, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yamru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yamru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort all the bereaved among us, and let us say together, amen.
Amen.
You may be seated.
Friends, we are tomorrow morning, just a few announcements. We have Shabbat study at 9 a.m. with Rabbi Roger Klein in person in the Hartzmark room. And Shabbat Shuvah is on September 27th at 9 a.m. This all is on the back of your handout. And Kever, and the ceremony of Kever Dorot is happening on September 28th. I would also just love to share with you that on behalf of the entire clergy team, we are very excited and looking forward to spending these days of Oz with you. We also lovingly and graciously ask for your patience as we are still working on a few of the kinks, because we want this experience for everyone to be meaningful and fulfilling. And God willing, in a half a decade from now, nobody will remember this transition. So just please be a little bit patient. Our staff is working so very, very, very hard, and we really appreciate your partnership in this process. Our closing song today is
Tefillat
Haderech.
Haderech. It's on your handout, a way for us to say thank you and begin to say farewell to this year as we approach the new year. May you be blessed as you go on your way. May you be guided in peace. May you be blessed with health and joy. May this be your blessing. Amen. Your blessing. Amen. 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 May this be your blessing. Amen. May you be sheltered by the wings of peace. May you be kept in safety and in love. May grace and compassion find their way to every soul. May this be your blessing. Amen. 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 May this be your blessing. Amen. Blessing. Amen.
Friends, we wish you a Shabbat Shalom and hope you'll join us in the lobby for Kiddush and Motzi.
Shabbat Shalom.